Thanks for joining. Oh my gosh, wow. Hi, good afternoon, Omar. Thanks for joining. Omar is one of our loyal supporters. He's been amazing and actually doing quite a lot of baking from the recipes that I've put on. So really happy for you, Omar. And my kitchen's really bright today because the sun is just literally in front of this window, and it's great. Unfortunately, my kitchen window faces a car park, so occasionally you'll hear cars, or I think at the moment I can hear a motorcycle just outside my window, which is ooh. I'm hungry already. My friend here, Mike, he's from Moscow, and some years ago we did a collab on Instagram, and we were exchanging recipes. It was so much fun. I made a borscht. Wow, that borscht lasted for days. I made so much of it because I was following his recipe, and I made so much of it I had to freeze it. Hi, thanks for joining, Mel. So nice to see you all the way from Indonesia. You guys were able to make it. I know it's an impromptu live today. Normally I'm cooking live on Thursdays, as you know, at 2 o'clock. But today I figured, you know what? The sun is shining outside and we're edging towards the summer. And, you know, some of the summer produce are starting to come out now. So I thought, you know, it's rhubarb season. It's a season for plums, and I really fancied a crumble. Sure, I thought, you know what, and my husband was saying, Dwayne was saying, I fancy a crumble. Can you make a crumble? You've not made one in a long time. So I thought I'd share the recipe with you, and I hope that you'll get to make it. Lolita loves Boo. Hello, thank you for joining. I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna be using some rhubarb and plums, and it's going to be a really fresh and very sort of light, whereas an apple crumble, because it has that cinnamon spice in it, it tends to be, I mean, don't get me wrong, I could eat crumble any day, but I associate apple crumbles with sort of winter, the autumn, you know, when it's cool, when it's cold outside. Whereas rhubarb, plums, I associate that with the summertime. I love your emojis, Lolita. That's so funny. Okay, so let's go to the counter where I'm going to show you the ingredients. Did you know apple crumble is a favorite dessert of the English rugby team? No, I had no idea. Good to know. Good to know. You're funny. Okay, so let's have a look. I've got my other device in front of me so I can hopefully see all your comments. Okay, so as I said, this recipe is a variation of the crumble, but to be honest, you can make a crumble with pretty much any fruit. No, I'm making a rhubarb and plum. This is a plum. I'm making a rhubarb and plum crumble. So in terms of ingredients, here I've got about 8 plums. I bought them last week, so they've been ripening even further, so they'll be really sweet and have a little bit of tartness to it. I've got my rhubarb, so I've got 3 sticks of rhubarb. I've got some lemon juice. The lemon is going to nicely lift all the flavors and accentuate that rhubarb flavor. Then for the crumble, I've got some plain flour. You don't need to go, well, you can just use whatever flour you have, but I've got plain white flour. I've got some rolled oats. Whoops. Hi. I've made the crumble topping before using flour and butter and sugar as the base. So those are the 3 main ingredients that you would typically put in the crumble topping. but you can have fun with it. So today I'm using rolled oats, but I've used granola if you add it to your crumble, and then when you put it in the oven it really crisps up on the top and it's just super delicious. I've used, you can also use nuts. So one good addition to the crumble is things like chopped walnuts or pecans. Pecans give it a nice richness, or you could use flaked almonds. And what I would recommend doing with the flaked almonds is before you incorporate them with your butter and your flour and sugar, is I would toast them in a dry pan just for a minute or so until they start to turn a little bit golden. I won't be serving it with ice cream, but I will be serving it with custard. But you know what? Ice cream, great idea, especially if you're serving it straight from the oven. So you've got that contrast of hot and cold and sweet and that crunch from the crumble. Ooh, I'm getting hungry. Yeah, so we've got the rolled oats. Like I said, you can substitute it with granola or nuts, a variation of different nuts if you wanted. I wanted to add some more texture, a different texture. One of the things I enjoy doing when I'm cooking, I love to, to play around with textures. So I've got some sunflower seeds in lieu of nuts because I didn't have any nuts. A little bit of butter that I'm going to use to cook my fruit. I've got some sugar in here. I'm using a light brown sugar. Then I'm using this stuff. So this I originally bought. It's just vodka. I bought it as just pure vodka with the intention of drinking it in not martinis, in cocktails. But anyways, and it's been sitting in our bar cart for, well, years practically. And one day I was making a dessert that used sorry, my stand is having a moment. Excuse me. I was using the pods. So what I ended up doing is, rather than throwing out the vanilla after I've scraped off the seeds, I just plonked them in this bottle of vodka, and yeah. So I didn't have I did vanilla extract or vanilla essence. I'm using my vodka. So that's that. So there's about, I would say, because it's not as strong as a vanilla extract, so I'm using quite a fair bit of vodka. So this is about 50 ml in there, okay? So we're gonna start off with preparing the fruit first, and then we're going to move on to creating the crumble. So I've got my bowl on one side, and I'm just going to, these have been washed, so make sure you always wash them. And I'm going to slice them in half, give them a little twist, and with a small, I have an even smaller teaspoon. With a small teaspoon, you can easily take out the pith. Okay. I need another bowl to put all the, okay, there we go. So you guys been trying any of the recipes that I've posted so far? I'm gonna try and read the comments while I do this. I know Omar's been doing a lot of baking. He made the banana breads the other, what was it, yesterday? Actually, you've made it a couple of times, in fact. I was really honored that you've been making my recipes. So in terms of fruits that you can use, so apple is a more traditional one. I've made crumbles with pears. Hi, Emma, thanks for joining. Oh my gosh. I feel, I don't have a sweet tooth either, actually, Clyde. So I don't bake a great deal. I don't really make a lot of desserts, often. I'm more of a savory person. Emma, oh, it's so nice to see your little emoji face. You can make crumbles with peaches. I've made it with apricot, and play around, you know, mix and match some fruits. Sometimes I've added, just if I'm serving it for, I don't know, a fair number of people, I will serve it, I will mix in maybe berries. So I've taken out the seed from my plums. This is a rhubarb, and I know some of you are logged in from abroad, specifically Asia. I'm not sure if you can find rhubarb. Rhubarb kind of looks like a celery, but it's used in desserts. And it's a very popular British ingredient, actually. I never really knew about rhubarb until I moved to the UK. But if you can't find rhubarb, you can replace the rhubarb with apples, because that's more widely found around the world. Or you can replace it with, do you know one thing that I'd love to try, actually, that might be a little bit different, is a crumble, and then instead of sort of European fruits, I was thinking of making a banana and coconut crumble. How good would that be? Banana, an edible pina colada. Yes, that would be amazing. Okay, let's get cracking. So you'll see on your rhubarb, the ends at the ends tend to be really tough, so I just like to take that off, and the other end as well. One thing to note with the rhubarb is never eat it raw. You will end up with a dodgy stomach, and it's not fun, so don't eat it raw. The skin of the rhubarb tends to be a little bit fibrous and a little bit fibrous, so I like to give it a bit of a peel just to tidy it up. But rhubarb has this amazing sort of freshness to it, the smell of summer. To me, rhubarb is summer. Rhubarb goes very well with apples. If you're creating a savory dish, you could make a rhubarb compote to go with things like a roast pork loin, or maybe roast duck. Yes, Chef Clyde is absolutely right. Roast duck goes really well with rhubarb. Oops. Oh, I have one more. So rhubarb kind of looks really, it's funny. It's a funny, funny, well, is it a vegetable or is it a fruit? I don't know. Maybe our Chef Clyde here in the comments could enlighten us, but I'm pretty sure it is categorized as a vegetable. Actually, it goes all pink. Okay, there you go. So that is done. Oh no, I forgot one side. Okay, right. So this is done. I am now going to slice my rhubarb. This one's a bit thicker than the other one, so I'm just going to slice it lengthwise, and then I'm just going to chop it into cubes. You're looking for cubes about this dimension. I mean, you don't need to be too precise, because it will cook down and it won't really matter at that point. So long as it's obviously easier to cook them when they are chopped up. Okay. Oh, I see a couple people have... What a way to throw me under the bus. No, but honestly, I don't know the answer. Does anybody know, actually, if the rhubarb is categorized as a fruit or a vegetable? Because I'm inclined to say that it's a vegetable, even though we use it predominantly for desserts. Who knows? Who knows? So I've got my pan that I forgot to heat up. So my pan is getting warm. I'm gonna add my butter. Okay. And I'm gonna add my my rhubarb. I'm gonna make sure that every piece of rhubarb is nicely coated in that butter. What we're looking for is, we're not looking for any coloring. We're just looking to start the cooking process and for the rhubarb to start getting nice and soft. Okay. At this point, I am going to add some sugar. Now, you can use white granulated sugar, but we don't actually have sugar at home. And the only sugar that I do have is that I mean, this has lasted me for a while, and I use it for cooking, so I don't really use, we don't have sugar at home for stuff like that. But anyways, I'm gonna put in a tablespoon and a half. Okay. Just keep stirring, because what you don't want is for the sugar to caramelize and then stick to the bottom. But you see, as you can see here now, it's starting to, the moisture from the rhubarb is starting to come out of the rhubarb, and it's creating a little bit of a juice. Let's see in the comments. Google knows all. Rhubarb is a vegetable. Google does know all. Okay, so my rhubarb is cooking nicely. I'm now going to put in my what are those? My plums. Hi, Amanda. Amanda. Okay, so my plums are. Sorry, my plums. My plums are now in my plums have now joined the rhubarb. So I am going to let that cook down on a medium heat. And actually, I'm gonna to speed up that process. I'm gonna plant the lid. Okay. And I'm gonna leave it as is. We are going to create the crumble. And so, for the crumble, every crumble has the same, they start off with the same ingredients. So, I've got plain flour. I'm gonna be using about, oops, here we go. And because it's a crumble, you don't need to sift your flour either. So I'm a bit greedy for the crumble of a crumble. So I tend to make my crumbles with a generous topping. Not everyone's like that, but I just hate being served a crumble where the crumble is like tiny amounts. I like the crumble bit. Are you the same? Or do you prefer more fruit over the topping instead of the topping? I don't know. I like a lot of topping and an okay amount of the fruit bit. Not that I don't like fruit. I mean, I love fruit, but, you know. Anyway, so let's go back to here. Okay. So, I've got my flour. When you're baking, it's always a good idea to add a little pinch of salt. And I'm not looking to turn it into a savory dish, but I am turning it, but the salt helps bring out the flavor. The next ingredient is my oats, and I will use a spoon. Okay. So I'm not gonna use too much of it. I'm just gonna put in about 2 tablespoons. And don't worry about writing notes if you don't have pen and paper. I am going to post this video after I've edited, and I will post it on Instagram, on YouTube later. So I've got my rolled oats, and now I'm going to add my sugar. I mean, ideally I would have used a white sugar, a white granulated sugar, but as I said, I don't have that at the moment. Okay, so I've got my sugar. Now, I've kept my butter in the refrigerator. I cubed it first, and I've kept it in the refrigerator in some water, just so that it keeps cool, because what you don't want, is your butter to be warm and soft. I'm naturally a warm-blooded individual, and so I need to run my hands in cold water so that I don't end up melting the butter when I start to assemble my crumble. Okay, so while I do that, while I cool down my hands, my favorite part in this is the bit between the fruit and the crumble. Me too! Yes! Me too! That's my favorite bit! It's the bit that goes a bit chewy and a little bit like... Yes, it's so good. I just forgot about the chew. Yeah. It's all about contrast. If you step back and think about it for a minute, you've got that warm, sweet tartness of the fruit, and then suddenly your palate's hit with this crunch from the top layer of the crumble that's been directly underneath exposed to the oven's heat, and then you have that chewiness. It's kind of like eating cookie dough. Oh, it's so good. Okay, my hands are freezing. I think I'm going to end up having hypothermia. No, I'm kidding. Let's have a quick check. Okay, my fruit is looking good. Okay, looking good. I'm just going to give it a quick stir. I'm going to reduce the heat because it's a little bit too fiery. Okay, and my hands are warm again. Hold on. Sorry. Right. So, okay, we're back. Hands are freezing. They are freezing, and they've gone all white, actually. Don't be alarmed, and yes, it does. Crumbles do use a lot of butter. I'm gonna just mix my sugar. So in this bowl, I put my flour, my rolled oats, and my sugar. I'm going to add my sunflower seeds because I wanted to give it that added texture, and I'm going to start incorporating my butter bit by bit. And you know what? This is a lot of butter, and I may not actually end up using it. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to be using the tips of your hands. Okay? And if you didn't catch, and if you are prone to having warm hands, just run your hands in cold tap water in a sink, and then it should be fine. It should be nice and cool. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm pinching everything together. I don't know if you can see. I'm pinching everything together. Yes, you can use flora to substitute for butter. I prefer butter. I prefer butter. It just, butter, good quality butter has tremendous flavor. Okay, so, and what you're looking for is kind of like rubble. That kind of size. If it's still too powdery, the texture, then that means that you would need to add a little bit more butter. That's why I do recommend not putting all of the butter at the same time. So I'm going to add some more. Okay, not all of it. Okay, so keep pinching. My husband is staring at me through the window because he's cleaning the windows. I would turn the camera around, my phone around, but I can't right now. My hands are all doughy. Okay. This is, the next thing I'm going to do is actually what I'd like to do. I like to do because I like those big chewy bits that Chef Clyde was mentioning. So I tend to squeeze and then break it down. I tend to squeeze and then break it down. So you end up with these like fat nuggets. Oh my god, and they're so good. Okay, right. I think we're pretty much done. This is nice. This is looking really good. Okay. Right. So I'm gonna so my crumble topping is ready. And you know what? Because the crumble filling is already, cooked, it's not going to take very long in the oven. So it's a perfect dessert if you're one of those impatient people. If you have to go away and do something else, and you're not going to assemble your crumble straight away, then I would recommend placing your crumble rubble in a Ziploc bag and in the refrigerator so the butter keeps cool and it doesn't start to melt. Right, let's have a look at the filling. I'm just moving my crumble away from the heat because I don't want it to melt. Right. Oh, we have Sarah Kelly Drake. Welcome, Sarah Kelly Drake. So nice to see you. We're making a rhubarb and plum crumble. Okay, so this is starting to look really unctuous and okay. I can smell summer. This is so exciting, so exciting. Okay, so I'm gonna add my my vanilla infused vodka. And I'm using vanilla infused vodka because I don't have vanilla extract at the moment, so I'm doing this. Don't worry, the alcohol content is going to evaporate as soon as it hits the heat. In fact, oh my. Ooh, okay. There's no need for an aperitif this afternoon because, wow, I just inhaled vodka. Pure vodka. Okay. Meanwhile, my oven has been preheating for... Why is this hot? Okay. My oven's been preheating for a good 20-25 minutes at 205 degrees Celsius. So I want it nice and hot because my butter is nice and cold still. Make sure that it is really cold. And I want the flour to basically cook before the butter has a chance to melt, if that makes sense. Because otherwise you will end up having a really soggy crust, and you don't want that. So you need to have your crumble very, very, very cold. And okay, so this is now ready. I am going to lift it up with some... some lemon juice. This is perhaps one of my favorite kitchen utensils. I bought this from an antique store. It is a French-made silver lemon squeezer, and all you do is you put your lemon inside, and then you squeeze, and then basically it catches the pips. It's great. I use it all the time. I love it. Okay, so I've added the juice of half a lemon just to lift that freshness. And now I am just going to, it's a simple case of adding it to my dish. So it's on my dish. I put my dish on a baking tray because then that's a lot easier than to, pick it up. Incidentally, if you were to make this, you could puree it or maybe a cupful worth, puree it, allow it to cool, and then use it in, add a spoonful of it in your Prosecco. Is that what? Always time for an aperitif. Promise I won't get you drunk next time. Yeah, right. You know, kind of like a Bellini, except with rhubarb and plum. That's a good idea. Okay, so this is ready. My crumble's ready, and now it's a case of, I'm actually going to give it a little bit of more squeeze, because I want big rubble. Big rubble. Okay, right. Okay, so now I'm just going to add my crumble topping. And I told you I love a generous amount of crumble topping. I'm not... So I'm going to distribute... But, and you know what? It's really important that you place your crumble, your dish, onto a baking tray, because it will bubble. It will bubble, and it will cause a mess, and it is really difficult to clean at the bottom of your oven. In fact, I'm just going to, I should have maybe thought about it earlier, but I'm going to line my baking tray with some parchment paper, so there you go. This is going to go into the middle shelf of my oven. Whoa. Okay. Middle shelf of the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. Enough time for it to get really golden, really bubbly. It'll start to, when you look at it, and do go and check your oven, because sometimes ovens, they, you know, it might say 200 degrees, it might say 180 degrees, but the actual internal temperature might be more or might be less. But in any case, what you're looking for is a really golden crust. Some people like to add extra sugar on top to really get that caramelized sort of crunch to the topping, but I think there's enough sugar in here, so I've left it as it is. So it's in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius. It's going to be in there for about 80 minutes, about 20 minutes, and that gives me enough time to look at all your comments. And also, people, are you making a fresh creme anglaise later? No, I'm cheating. I'm cheating. My custard is not homemade. Don't judge. We didn't have any eggs or cream or anything like that. If I had actually planned properly to do a an online live, I would have totally gotten the ingredients to make a crème anglaise or a custard to go with, because actually a homemade custard is the best thing, especially if you have the opportunity to use fresh, real vanilla pods. So I love a thick custard or crème anglaise that has, those little black flecks. Making a crumble about, what time is it now? 2:40, about maybe around midday. So you can replace your fruits with any fruit, really. I think for those of you, because I recognize that some of you are not based in Europe, you're based in Asia, and so it might be really difficult to find vegetable. Well, it is a vegetable, actually. We discovered that thanks to Chef Clyde. It might be difficult to get your hands on rhubarb. So I would recommend maybe using apples. A Granny Smith is a really good apple to use. Hi, meandering Christina. Thanks for joining. We're waiting for the rhubarb and the rhubarb crumble to finish in the oven. Do you grow any of your own herbs or vegetables? I wish we did. But I'm not very good with keeping plants alive. I'm notorious for killing them off, and not because I intentionally do it. It's just that they just, I don't know, I can't seem to keep them. But and also we live in an apartment so it's a small apartment. There's no outdoor spaces. I am thinking, however, and I'll show you, and maybe you can enlighten me, but I am contemplating turning this window ledge into a herb, sort of like a herb garden, because I do use fresh herbs all the time in my cooking, and I think if you do have a herb garden, I think it's really good to have those key essentials. So I'm talking about rosemary, thyme, then you've got your, I use a lot of parsley, flat leaf parsley. Chives is really good to have in your herb garden. I wish I had a vegetable patch as well. Those are things that I'd love to have, but city living, I don't have access to an outdoor space. Well, we don't have an outdoor space, so it is what it is. Let me just check on my crumble. It's really great. Windowsill is a great place. Okay, yeah, it is. My only issue with growing herbs is I've grown, what have I grown in the past? I've grown mint. That, super easy. It's so low maintenance. The herbs that don't, and basil, that's really easy. The herbs that I tend to kill off tend to be things like coriander and chives. Sorry, that was a car in a car park. They tend to have a problem with me, or I have a problem with them. I don't know. Either way, they never last in my kitchen. So actually, for those of you who, I was saying at the start of this, for those of you who are based in Asia and you don't have access to rhubarb, try something different. Try other alternatives. Maybe there are fruits that you have locally that could work well. I mean, and this is maybe controversial, but durian, for those of you who know what a durian is, it looks like it kind of looks like a jackfruit, except it's really, really spiky, and it has a very pungent smell. Okay. They have a really pungent smell, but the flesh inside is quite rich, and I think it could work quite well. You could maybe try and infuse pandan leaves in your custard. So if you're serving it with a crème anglaise, maybe you can try and infuse pandan leaves in that, in the cream. When I lived I grew up in Singapore for many years, and it was just, it's a smell that is recognizable. Let's put it that way. Such a popular fruit, but it is. I think if you're prone to being turned off by certain smells, it's probably one of those smells that would really put you off if you're not used to it. And it's very sweet. I find it very, very sweet. But so you could do that, or maybe you could use bananas. Ooh, nice. Oh, a braai. A braai is a South African term for a barbecue. Perfect weather for a barbecue. I'm very jealous. Aaron Yap. So Aaron says it tastes so good. He's referring to the durian fruit. So it's quite a big fruit. For those of you who've been to London, you've probably seen them. Actually, you might have seen them in Chinatown near Leicester Square, because I've seen them there. Let me think of other fruits. Pears. Pears are really good for crumbles. They work really, really well for crumbles. Pears. Quince. Quince might be difficult to find in Asia. And then play around with the crumble itself, the toppings, because I've used rolled oats, and sunflower seeds, but that's because I don't have anything else at the moment. But use flaked almonds, give them a little bit of a toast in a dry pan, maybe use some hazelnuts, crush your hazelnuts, and then add that to the flour and butter and sugar mixture. Maybe you could also try adding some dried fruits, so like dried apricots works really well. Dried apricots, because they're quite high in sugar content, they tend to caramelize and go a bit chewy. You could try putting in walnuts, pecans in a crumble topping, along with this is so decadent, along with white chocolate. I tell you, it is the best. You could try macadamia nuts, although macadamia nuts are really, really rich, expensive as well, and depending on where you are. And I wouldn't use a lot of it. I would probably maybe split the quantity, so maybe put, a third, maybe not even a quarter of the amount that you would of macadamia nuts, and then mix it with, say, another nut like a hazelnut to give that bulk. But I wouldn't use macadamia nuts for the whole thing. Any recipes or any kitchen related or cooking related questions that you have, that you've maybe challenges that you have in the kitchen sometimes, 8 minutes. 8 minutes. 8 minutes of TV time. And I'm still trying to get Aaron. So Aaron, we were playing with a new pear crumble dessert just before the lockdown. Looking forward to getting him back on the menu. Brilliant. So Aaron is an amazing cook. I've been watching his posts lately, and it makes me reminisce of Asia when I grew up there. There's so many dishes that I recognize, and I love it. I can't bake. I can't bake either. Actually, you know what? A crumble is the perfect recipe for people who cannot bake. I can't bake at all. I'm useless at baking, and also I hate measuring things. It takes me too much time and it's too precise. I like to throw things together, and creating a crumble is the perfect recipe. Preferred ways of cutting, chopping different vegetables. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. So, the cut of the vegetable that you're using really depends on what it is that you're trying to make. But the reason why sometimes, and you might have noticed in some of my previous recipes, I tend to explain the different types of cuts for vegetables, and this is predominantly to do with cooking time. So one thing to really note, if you are using multiple vegetables in any given dish, let's say, for example, you are making a beef stew, okay? And in a beef stew, you'll have carrots, you'll have celery, you'll have onion. Some people like to add potato in there. Those 4 vegetables are all created differently. They all have different levels of density, and so they all cook at different times. So what I would do is a vegetable like a potato will take longer than a onion. So the more... Are they magnetic spice pots on the fridge? Yes, I'll get to that if you want to come and explore my spice pots. Potato is more dense than an onion, so automatically you're going to cut your potatoes a little bit smaller, depending on also the dish itself. So if you were to add a potato, for example, to a curry that you are allowing to simmer for an extended amount of time, then I would actually leave the potato as big as possible, because what you don't want is you still want to end up having the potato kept together and not broken down into your finished dish. So the smaller the smaller cut, you'll end up having, you won't be able to see the vegetable in its original form at the end. When it comes to vegetable cuts, there are different names for them. Do I have time for a quick demo? Okay, yeah, I think I do. I'm gonna use a potato to demonstrate a variety of different cuts. What happened? I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I wasn't even touching my phone. Okay. Timed out at 60 minutes. Oh, maybe that's it. So I'm okay, fine. All right. So I have got 2 minutes and 44 seconds to go until my crumble is ready. So I'm gonna, for the gymnasium, I'm going to show you a couple vegetable cuts with my little trusty potato. Okay. So the first cut is going to be a julienne, and a julienne is a very thin matchstick. Typically, you're looking at this sort of width, okay? When I was in culinary school, we used to practice a lot on these techniques, and they are quite old-fashioned, but I do feel that it's good to have these techniques on hand, because you might need to, I don't know, use a different cut for different dishes. You might need to, you know, do a presentation, like present certain vegetables a certain way, and pardon me, it just looks really nice on the plate. So if you were making matchstick French fries, for example, then I would do I would do like a thin julienne. So using your knife, the back of your knife is basically your guide, and it really should slide against your knuckle, like so. So what you're not looking to do is do this. No. You're looking to use your knuckle as your guide, okay? And you're going to go in this sort of circular motion, okay? So, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to use the same, you're just trying to make sure that they're approximately the same dimensions. So here you go. They're pretty much the same size for each, okay? So that is, and you can go thinner as well. Just make sure that your knives are really, really sharp. Another cut is, let me see, you might do a cube, you might do a, okay. You might want to dice your potatoes. Say, for example, you're making a Cornish pasty. Okay, a Cornish pasty would have potatoes. And for Cornish pasty, you want to dice your potatoes into little cubes of about this dimension. Because by the time the pasty crust has finished cooking, your potato will be soft and tender, and it would still keep its size, its shape, okay? So you've got your cubes of potatoes. When you're chopping an onion, And don't worry, these are not going to be put to waste. When you're chopping an onion and you want to dice an onion, the easiest way to do it is when you're peeling your onion, so you've cut your onion in half, I tend to keep this loose skin because it holds each of the layers together, okay, to the end bit. So what you want to do first is you want to cut across, like so, and you want to do it on multi-levels, okay? So flat hand, your palm pressing down, and your knife must be flat, and then don't go to the very end. So you want to go to about as close as possible to this section here. And then repeat. Just above, just slide gently your onion. And then repeat. Okay? And then I think I can go one more to the top. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 incisions. Then I'm going to make further incisions this way. So it kind of creates like this grid. And then all you need to do is, remembering to curve your fingers, is chop away. And then what you end up with is this dice. If you are interested in a more extensive lesson on different cuts, and sorry, I'm attached to I was attached to my drawer handle. If that is of interest, let me know in the comments below, and yeah, I'd be more than happy to give you a little tutorial on knife skills. Okay, let's have a look at this crumble. Oh my gosh, this crumble, guys. Oh my gosh, I think you guys will like it. Ta-da! Look at that. Da-da-da-da-da. If you want to, if you want to leave it in the oven a little bit longer so it gets a little bit darker, feel free to do so, but it's crunchy, it's bubbly, it's gone this ruby, kind of almost ruby pink. I mean, how can you not like this? I'm really looking forward to this, actually. Very much so. So yeah, so this afternoon I'm going to be serving my rhubarb and plum crumble with a custard. You can eat it with a vanilla ice cream, or the choice is yours. But I'll put the ingredients in the edited version of this live stream, which will go out later in the week on the YouTube channel. And in the meantime, it's been nice to have you. Now I've got to go and make the Sunday roast. See you guys later. Take care.